It was just has a delay, which is probably best if I have a microphone that's on a delay. Good morning, everyone. I cannot tell you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you. That is much better from early childhood educators and supporters. Welcome to Advocacy Day. This is our annual celebration and day here in Dover to advocate for greater state investments and stronger policies for early childhood education. Thank you to our leaders. Today we have First Lady Tracy Pilling-Harney.
Yeah!
And I have a hype man next to me. That's even better.
Flavor Flav!
Senator Kyle Evans-Gay is also here with us. We'd like to thank for their continued support Delaware State University and the early ECIC, which I can never, sorry. There are too many acronyms in early childhood education. I would like to thank the Department of Education. I know I saw Dr. Cora Scott and Caitlin Gleason. Along with the Office of Childcare Licensing. Thank you. And we also have the DEAEYC, which I'm not going to pretend that I ever remember the initials for. Thank you for your continued support. Also, thank you to the Office of Women's Advancement at the state of Delaware for the bags that we have. A big shout out to our partners at Rodell. We could not be here without you. And to everyone at DEAEYC that is also supporting. They're on your seats. You have information about today. You have information about a conference in the future. And we have a great lineup. We are here really because of you. If you are an educator in this room, could you please stand up right now and let us recognize you? I want to take a moment to give a special thanks to all of you for being here, because it takes a lot to take a day off of taking care of children to ensure that you're here. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you. We will, just to give a little rundown of the day, we're going to have several presentations that are really exciting. We're going to break for lunch. We're going to head over around 12:45 to Legislative Hall to do a photo on the stairs outside. Thankfully, it is a gorgeous day and we don't have to be inside for that. And then we'll head into legislator meetings. We will have information throughout the day about all of these things, but now I have the absolute honor of welcoming Dr. Tony Allen. Delaware State University has been a leader in education and early education.
Is that the picture you used?
That's the picture your staff gave. Okay. And, you know, we know the DSU supports us, but I'm going to let you hear from Dr. Allen on really, you know, the impetus of why early education is important, and early education is important at the higher education levels. So thank you, Dr.
All right,
Allen.
thank you, dear. Everybody stand up. I say this, I let my incoming freshmen do this all the time because I want them to know how important their roles are. Okay, it's a call and response. That means when I say something. Okay, you got it. All right, so everybody say, I am the voice.
I am the voice.
I lead, not follow.
I lead, not
I
follow.
will create, not destroy.
I will create, not destroy.
I'm a leader.
I'm a leader.
I'm a force for good.
I'm a force for
I'm
good.
a force for peace.
I'm a force for peace.
Defy the odds.
Defy the odds.
Set a new standard.
Set a new
Step
standard.
up.
Step up.
Step up.
Step up.
Step up.
Step up.
A little louder. I am the voice.
I am the
I
voice.
will lead, not follow.
I will lead, not
I
follow.
will create, not destroy.
I will create, not
I'm a
destroy.
leader.
I'm a
I'm a
leader.
voice for good.
I'm a voice for
I'm a
good.
force for peace.
I'm a force for peace.
Defy the odds.
Defy the odds.
Set a new standard.
Set a new
Step
standard.
up.
Step up.
Step up.
Step up.
Step up.
Step up.
At the top of your lungs, I am the voice.
I am the
I
voice.
will lead, not follow.
I will lead, not
I will
follow.
create, not destroy.
I will create, not
I'm a
destroy.
leader.
I'm a
I'm
leader.
a force for good.
I'm a force for good.
I'm a force for peace.
I'm a force for peace.
Defy the odds.
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 Set a new standard.
Set a new
Step
standard.
up.
Step up.
Step up.
Step up.
Step up.
Step up.
Give yourselves a great big round. You may be seated. I'm Tony Allen. Graduation was last week, so I'm on a mental vacation. But I'm excited about this opportunity for a couple of reasons. One, we will not survive. I'll say that again. We will not survive if we don't take care of our babies. It just won't happen. So the notion that we have early childhood advocacy is one thing. But the funding that should come with that, is the key to our future. So I always say at Delaware State, I'm proud to be the president, but I'm just a cheerleader. I'm just a cheerleader. If I don't have folks like Shelley Rouser, is Shell in the building? No, okay. It's Kim Kresnowski Is Kim in the building? Yeah. Oh, there she is. Give it up for Kim. If I don't have those folks telling me, Tony, this is what we need to do, then it really doesn't help Delaware State University because our folks aren't prepared. We just graduated the largest class in Delaware State University's history. Here's what's important about that. They had the highest cumulative grade point average in our history. Here's why I think that's important. We have an early college school, right, at 7th through 12th grade. Those students, 600 of them, can get up to 60 college credits before they're ever admitted into any university. Right? So it's really not about when I get you as a freshman. It's can I get you earlier? Right? And the earlier I can get you, 7th grade is not enough. The earlier I can get you, the better we're going to be. For ourselves, for our communities, and for each other. I will tell you one story that I think is very important. You all know I'm a recovering banker. Anybody know that? Yeah. Okay. So I'm provost. Got my best job ever. I'm excited. My mother told me, Tony, you got to go home and be a teacher. I said, okay. It's probably a month in. My executive assistant says, Tony, or Dr. Allen, they call you doctor there. No, I think they're cursing you when they call you doctor. But they say, Dr. Allen, some young man is out there waiting for you. I said, does he have an appointment? They said, that's not what we do here. I said, okay, all right. Well, he's got to wait. I'm in meetings. He said, I'll wait. He waited for an hour. Literally an hour. He came into my office First Lady and said, Dr. Allen, my mentor at Brown's Boys and Girls Club, anyone know Brown's Boys and Girls Club? Yeah. Brown's Boys and Girls Club said, as soon as you get here, I need to see you. I said, how can I help you, young man? He said, I'm homeless. I said, how long have you been homeless? He said, since I was a sophomore in high school. I said, what year are you in at Delaware State University? He said, I'm a sophomore here. Dawn, think for a minute. What it means for a young man to be a sophomore in high school, think about college, apply to college, get into college, and never tell a soul about his plight for another 2 years. Think about that. So I said, bro, I got you. 2 years with me, interned in my office, obviously got him housing and food. Drove my wife and I crazy for another 2.5 years. Right? You know what that young man does now? He is an inner city teacher in a Baltimore City public school. If there is anything you remember from what I say in these very short moments I have with you, is if we get these folks early, we can absolutely change their lives. We can absolutely change their lives. You know, I don't tell my personal story very often, but my mother was kicked out of a Florida public school because you couldn't be pregnant and be in a Florida public school in the 1960s. So they kicked her out. She went to Newark, where her sister was, and had me. And then she married a great guy who was my father. I like to call him stepfather. He's my father. Teamster, had no idea. They had no idea how I was getting to college, but college was going to happen. No idea. But they put me in programs from when I was a little boy. To get me through. And I remember, I told my mother passed away a couple years ago, and I said, one day I said, Mommy, you only paid $500 for 3 degrees. She was still angry about that $500. Still, I mean, Barbie rolled over in her grave, I'm telling the story. Right? But I can tell you, if we can touch people at their earliest point. Young man, can you say earliest point?
You say earliest point?
You said you're busy? Okay, it's fine. You can touch people at their earliest point. We can change the state of Delaware. Engineering, science, law, education. We can literally change the state of Delaware. And I'm proud to say that we have a governor and a first lady that believe in that. They don't live high on the hill. Literally Tracy probably didn't know this. The other day I was over on Baynard Boulevard in Wilmington, and I stopped. I was stopping, and she walked past me with her dog. And I was like, is that the first lady? Hanging out in Wilmington? Yes. So we have everything we need right here. We have everything we need right here. And if you can believe as I believe that a young man whose mother was a teenage mom, got kicked out of Florida public school, could be the president of Delaware State, then you actually believe that anything can happen. That anything can happen. But that's why we need you. We don't just need you for what you're going to do at Legislative Hall. Because who knows what happens there? Straight up, who knows what happens there? I spent 10 years trying to do public education reform. And they just made a decision yesterday. All right? So I don't really care about what happens at Legislative Hall. What I care is about what you each do every day. Every day. And if you're able to do that, if you're able to have some chutzpah, like Madeline Byard, who drives me crazy for maybe 20 years now, right?
But you're here.
I'm here. If you're able to do those things, then I promise you, we can change the landscape. Just as one example, and hear this now, it may not sound related, but just as one example, there are more people of color in the Delaware General Assembly than ever. That just happened 5 years ago. Think about that. This happened 5 years ago. So is that helpful? Sure. What I'm telling you is, if you decide, I want to do X, like Shelly and Kim told me, I want to have a $30 million project in the middle of COVID to build an early childhood development center. Dr. Allen, can you support me? That begins in the fall. That begins in the fall. No legislative decision, none of that, just want to. So that's why I started with I am the voice. I will not follow, I will create, not destroy. I'm a leader. I'm a force for good. I'm a force for peace. Defy the odds. Set a new standard. Step up, step up, step up. If you want to step up and you believe in what you're doing every day, recognize that it will change lives. There is a Tony Allen. There is the young man I just talked about, waiting for you to step up. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Allen. There are few people who say it as well as you do, and we thank you for your time, effort, and energy in backing our earliest learners in Delaware. I now have the honor of introducing a friend and colleague and our senator from District 5, Kyle Evans-Gay, to inspire us, tell us what's going on over in that building over there that, you know, Dr. Allen may not have put a little bit of shadow on. He threw a little shade, but that's fine because that's what we're here to do. And change takes time. And I would say, what, Madeline, 6 years ago, we had 25 people in this room. And today we have over 100, and we ran out of seats. So, now I will give microphone 1 to Senator Kyle Evans-Gay.
Thank you. Thank you. And I will also say, that's the picture, right? Sure, I love that one. I have some remarks, and I'm going to go back to them, but I love a standing room only crowd, and I love the call to action to step up. And I'll tell you something else that's different than 10 years ago when we've been waiting for this type of change. We have more people of color in our General Assembly than ever before. We have more moms. Yeah. And you know, and he loves the moms. This morning I dropped my daughter off at pre-K, and so thank you to the educators in the room. I have, since she has been 12 weeks old, trusted someone with her and with my older daughter who's 7, and I have always said to them when they are 12 weeks old, 13 weeks old, now giving me hell this morning, say, you know, be good today, listen to your teachers. You are teachers, you are educators. We have left the world behind where we are treating early education as a second-class educational space. This is the place where the foundations for everything happens afterwards, and I couldn't have said it better. I have been down in Legislative Hall telling people the good news that we have an opportunity, and you've heard our Lieutenant Governor say it, she has the number, I don't have the number, it's 0 through 3, she knows the days. We know that we have that opportunity to build children up in that space. We know that not only will it benefit them going forward, but we know that it will benefit us as a community, as a state. I am tired of putting Band-Aids on problems that we refuse to address at the beginning stages of life. I'm tired of letting early intervention not reach the kids that it needs to reach, and I am tired of saying this alone, which is why you are here today, to preach the good news today. Now, if you are in Senate District 5, I'm on board, so you're good. You can go visit someone else, okay? Don't waste your time with me. But let me tell you a little bit about some of the work we are doing in Legislative Hall, because funding is a problem. Funding is not just that we can't get there, it's that we don't have the tools to get there. That there are great individuals in the legislature, my colleague Senator Sturgeon included, who want to help and we want to invest, but we don't always have the tools. And this is where government bureaucracy comes in, and we're part of it, right? But I will tell you that we have opportunities to collaborate. And that's why I'm so glad that First Spouse is here today, because in collaboration with the governor, many of you know that just recently this spring, we were able to redirect $20 million to go back to absence days and to co-payments for families. And I thank the governor for that leadership. And I am thankful that my colleagues stood up last year and said with Senate Bill 58 and 59 that we need those changes. We couldn't get it done in the legislature. We didn't have those tools, but the governor had those tools. And that is why we have to work together, and that is why our advocacy matters at every level. And just yesterday, we were in Legislative Hall talking about a new package of bills. This one specifically to go towards child safety. And I will share with you some of the pieces that I shared with the committee, because I did take my time and explained it all to them. Because one thing that I will tell you today is that people don't know what you do every day. They don't understand what it means. They don't understand the critical role you play. So before you tell them what you want, tell them what you do. Tell them why your parents come to you for help. Tell them how you help them apply for social services because no one else does. Tell them how you are helping understand how their children might need a little extra intervention. Tell them that you are still speaking to those families as they're in elementary school, checking in on those families and making sure everyone's okay. Let them know the work that you do. And I told them, here's the problem. We have a workforce shortage in this state. We have 12,000 more people looking for jobs than, or 12,000 more jobs than people looking for jobs. And I said, parents, I'll tell you, are not going to go to work if they don't have childcare. So you are a part of our workforce solution. Opportunities in early education are going to get us workforce solutions, and I'll tell you, smears picked up. I also shared with them that the governor has said, and we have said, that we have to be accountable because we do not have the 4th grade reading scores, the 4th grade math scores that we want. But we can't get those 4th grade math scores, those 4th grade reading scores, without kindergarten readiness. And we don't get kindergarten readiness without all of this. And so I said to the committee, these are bills that are about early education. These are bills that are about the people who help us provide this care. But this is about much more than that. And continuing to undervalue this space will continue to hurt our state moving forward. I also shared with them that unlike many situations, these bills that we're talking about, bills that would strengthen Office of Child Care licensing, bills that would strengthen our employment transparency practices, these are an industry, because you're an industry, right? This is an industry asking for more resources to be better regulated. When have you ever heard that before? It's usually the government saying we need to come and regulate this industry. No, you all are crying out for help. We need help understanding what the regs are. We need help understanding how we can better serve families. And you're asking the government to help, and I want to be a partner in that, and so many of my colleagues do. And I have to tell you that yesterday at the committee hearing, it was very powerful to hear the President Pro Tem of the Senate state how important this work is, and how important it is to strengthen our state processes that undergird the work that you're doing. So I'll tell you real quick, 3 bills. One is I know, it's a lot. It's like when I'm home, they're like, really? Don't worry, the movie's coming soon.
And it's on this flyer.
The 3 bills. Senate Joint Resolution 7. That's a bill that's going to ask that the DOE continue with the modernization process, so you all aren't working with paper anymore. This has been a long time coming, and it's the 21st century, last time I checked. We've got 1 vote. Two other bills. One, it would be, and I forget the numbers, 94, 95. One would be to remove a salary ceiling for our OCCL friends. Those folks who are helping you out every day. Okay. they're artificially depressed and we're losing them. You know the turnover rate is, you've seen more staff than you care to share. And the third is to make sure that that service letter process is good, so that when you're hiring, I know it's a tough market out there. I know our workforce, thank goodness for our DSU partners who are building that workforce and that pipeline, and I love you so much. But right now, we're waiting, right? And so when we are transferring folks, we need to understand where they've been and what's been happening, because you all have read the stories in the news, and my constituents and my colleagues' constituents have read the stories in the news, and it is just unacceptable for there to be accidents or welfare issues in childcare. I know you're partners in that, and I appreciate that. So we're going to be moving those bills forward. You can I think they're on your sheet today. You can advocate for that today. But I would also encourage you to advocate for a lot of things that are on the table. One is Kent and Sussex counties have lower rates. And we're not talking about that a lot today, but I want to remind you that it costs just as much to care for a child in Kent and Sussex counties, and potentially even more in certain areas. And so I want, that equity is powerful. That equity is powerful. And the other, again, is to make sure that you educate. You're the best people to speak for yourself. Step up, use your voice. Your voice is power. Thank goodness he was here. Because I want you to remember that we work for you. And you need to walk in there knowing that you deserve to be heard, and that this community deserves to be heard, because you are giving an invaluable resource to our community, and we thank you for that. So my last job is to introduce our first spouse. Yeah, I get the benefit, and I'm going to take a little bit of a personal privilege, just because I don't know how many more opportunities we'll have to be together, and I appreciate that, and I can't believe this time is coming closely to an end. But I will say that as I have been in the state senate, I have been watching and learning from our first spouse, and I'll say wherever kids go, Tracy goes. She sits with them, she shares with them, she learns alongside them, she provides opportunities for children to thrive, and she encourages them to use their voice for change. But really importantly to me, and important to the work that we do here, Tracy understands that the power of the position is there, and she uses it to convene us, and to convene stakeholders who together have the power to transform children's lives. And I'll share her words, not mine. Tracy has said, when kids and their families face foundational challenges, each adversity deepens all of the others in a geometric and often generational erosion of opportunity. So to be effective and efficient, our efforts have to alleviate those challenges. They have to be interconnected and mutually reinforcing. And that, my friend, is what you have done for all of us. And so I thank you for your commitment to children, and I am pleased to introduce our first spouse, Tracy Quillen-Carney.
I should just sit down, because I want to be that person, and I don't want to do anything to ruin it. I think my job is just to present awards. So I'm not going to talk about, we have real experts here. I'm an advocate, not an expert, and hope always to know the difference. I will just tell you what a privilege it has been to be welcomed into this work as a partner. That has been incredibly generous of all of you, and I really appreciate that. You didn't have to welcome me, and you did. And I think we're all better for it, so thank you very much. I just had to fill out a survey from the National Governors Association that is supposed to be for future first spouses. And the last question was, what do you want your legacy to be? I said, I just want people to say she cared about our kids. Yeah. And thank you for what you do for our kids every day. Thank you. I don't think I need to read that, but now we know what DEAEC stands for. I'm very pleased to have a role with my friend here in presenting the Educator of the Year Awards to the individuals who have well earned them, and to the community they represent, the community of educators they represent, in such an essential role in our state. First up, these are, you have to be in a family or center-based care, right? Okay. And that's really the only qualification. So, the center-based runner-up Early Childhood Educator of the Year is Caitlin Gibbons from Brilliant Little Minds Learning Center. You had to go first, so you have to say. And in the Family Childcare runner-up, the Early Childhood Educator of the Year, Stacy Morgan of Little Bit of Sunshine Nature Training Academy. The center-based Early Childhood Educator of the Year award goes to Megan Udy. If I remember right, I made a little video. So if I remember right, Del Tech Child Development Center, Georgetown campus. And the Family Childcare Early Childhood Educator of the Year, Mary Waters. And Mary, your center is named after you, right? Miss Mary's. Thank you. Thank you all very much for including me today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our first spouse. If you guys could all stand so we can give you the round of applause that you deserve. Just a little bit of housekeeping to keep everything moving. We are, if you need to take a break, if you need to go to the restroom, if you need a drink, please just go and do so without need for permission. You don't need to raise your hand. You don't need someone to relieve you. We're all going. No slips are needed. No check-in, check-out devices. You're all on your own. I now have the distinct honor, I'm so glad she could make it, of introducing Senator Laura Sturgeon. She is the senator that represents the district that my child care center is in, and she has continued to be a champion for early childhood education, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be in a room full of advocates for early childhood and early childhood educators. I'm Senator Laura Sturgeon, and as Jamie shared, I do represent the district in which her wonderful Early Learning Center is located. I just wanted to say that, first of all, thank you and congratulations to those of you who were awarded with Early Childhood Educator of the Year. I have worked very closely with Senator Gay, who you heard from earlier. She has wonderful legislation that she puts forth every year, and I always co-sponsor it, and we're really hoping that this year we're able to get some of that legislation through. But probably my biggest role is as a member of the Joint Finance Committee. I'm always advocating to make sure early childhood workers are being paid a good and living wage. That is so important. And I know that's not always the case, and we are really trying to move the needle in that direction because you are so important. I was a teacher for 25 years in the high school level, and that's pretty far removed from early childhood, but I can tell you, you can tell all the way up through 12th grade who had good early childhood experiences, whether they had it through a center, or they had it through a home care, or they had it from their parents. The students that I taught that had solid early years, that had that support that they needed, that had stimulating environments, age-appropriate environments, opportunities for play, opportunities to learn through play in a structured, very supportive environment, they thrive. And the students who don't have that, they really struggle, and sometimes they never catch up. They struggle throughout their lives. I know how deeply important your work is. We know all about, you've probably heard it today, so I'm late, I missed some of the earlier stuff, but the neuroplasticity of the brain and what the brain is going through from birth to age 5. It's what you do is probably the most important thing in the students' lives outside of what happens in their homes, because those 0 through 5 years are so essential to everything else that happens later. So just thank you, thank you, thank you, and know that I deeply appreciate your work, and I am here to support you all the way. Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to turn this microphone, whoo, that is bright, right over to Madeline.
Thank you all so much. I'm going to be quick because, as Tracy said, we want to hear from the experts. Our advocacy is working. The legislature and the administration tell us that it's working, that we need to keep the pressure up. So sometimes you wonder, oh, do I need to tell this person the same thing again? Yes. We have had increases in pre-K, increases in the market rate, investments in the workforce, co-payments decreased, absentees increased, and eligibility expanded. We have much more to do, but it's important to remember that we are seeing progress. So keep it up. And just a couple of key data points for everybody today, I think on the next slide. Even with that progress, we only have 1 in 5 kids under the age of 5 in public early care and education programs. Most developed countries have most of their children. We have a long way to go. We rank very low in terms of access in the bottom 10 states. And families above 200% of the federal poverty level, which is very low, have no access to public care. So we have a lot of work to do on affordability and access, and some of this is on the talking points sheet that you have. And Laura mentioned the wages. We know we have to invest more because we need educators to be making more and getting benefits, and we know about the equity. So just wanted to share a few data points to share today. We will go into this more, but looking to increase eligibility this year up to at least $250. That would take us only to a 2-income minimum wage family, so it's not super high. Increase purchase of care rates, pay based on enrollment, pay a statewide rate, and pay for special ed. So no small ask, but we have seen progress in these areas, and we will see more. So just want to say keep it up, and I think I am turning it over to Denny. Thanks for coming.
I'll have the parents come on up.
Yeah.
Are you gonna?
I'm gonna first.
Let me get my water.
Oh, sorry.
You can stay there. You're good. Nope, you're good.
It's always a good day to be advocating for early childhood, right? I am super happy to be here, my 2nd year. I do have my questions listed on my phone, so no judgment. When I tell people I am in early childhood, I like to say it's kind of like Dr. Maya Angelou meets Barney. I get to do the good work and do the research. I am in early childhood because I'm the advocate I needed when I was a child, and also the advocate I needed when I was an educator in the classroom. I always typically highlight how we talk about it takes a village to raise a child. You guys have heard that, right? But who's focused on the village? Me. We are. Delaware is. So I am super excited to interview a previous parent as well as the other parents that we have on the panel and talk about the opportunities that we all have to support families in Delaware. So I want to share with you guys, I know that concision is important. However, I want the impact of your words to be heard loud and clear. So I'm going to start by asking you guys just to tell me about your family, how many kids, what ages, and what types of childcare have you used?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Corey Beeman. I live in Wilmington. I have one son who you've probably heard talking nonstop throughout the entire morning. I apologize. And he is 2. He currently attends an in-home daycare in Wilmington. And my process in finding that in-home daycare was actually a difficult one. He was going to a daycare, Bright Horizons, that my husband was working at Chase, but then he left Chase, and Bright Horizons cost changed from being affordable, which was like $10 a day, to being almost $200-300 a week. And I was like, I don't have that, despite the fact that my husband and I both work full-time. And we were in the process of purchasing a home. And so if it wasn't for my religious network, someone who told me, hey, the person who watched my child 30 years ago is still in business today and has an availability to watch your son. I wouldn't have been able to have that today. So I am so gracious to Miss Bobby Owens in Wilmington for Miss Bobby's in-home daycare, who takes care of my son pretty much every day for a very, very affordable cost. So I'll pass it over to you, Leanne.
Hi everybody, my name is Leanna Pritchett. I have 4 little ones. They're no longer in early childhood. They are 10, 9, 7, and 6. At a point in the year, they go right up the ladder, right? So if you can imagine having to afford childcare for 4 children at one time, it's like somebody's got to stay home. At least for the first year of each child's, because our kids went to Del State Early Childhood Lab School, woohoo. They have a process where they have, they take purchase of care, but you have to pay up front, right? And so when you pay up front, you're waiting to get reimbursed to pay for the next month. And if the office is like, you know, short-staffed or somebody's on vacation or something like that, you don't get your money. And if you guys know, like I know, if you don't pay them in the beginning of the month, then your child can't go. So for the first year of each of my children's lives, I had the opportunity to either stay at home or bring my kids to work with me. So I never really got any work done for like about almost 5 years. But thank God for the support team at Del State. Dr. Dene was the early childhood director during that time. She was extremely supportive. She actually even tutors my kids to this day, so that like somebody mentioned that the people still reach out to kids. Imagine that I have a child that's in 5th grade right now, and we still are in touch with our early childhood network.
Hi, my name is Julia Hemmer. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and we live in Rehoboth Beach. And I have 2 very different experiences in Sussex County. When she was 1 and we were first planning our move there, I called multiple daycare centers. And I reached out on Facebook, hey moms, what's the best daycare centers? It was like, haha, good luck. And I got on wait lists about 5 or 6 different places 2 years ago. I just heard from the first center a couple months ago. And they were like, you're not really interested still. I mean, what have you been doing for the past year and a half? But in the meantime, right before we moved, my daughter was diagnosed with autism. So then I had a great experience in Sussex County. I got in touch with the 0 to 3 watch. I filled the gap for a couple months with just babysitters in the house, which we were lucky to be able to do. And then she has been enrolled at the Sussex Consortium in Lewis since she was 18 months old, and they're amazing. She gets door-to-door transportation. She's in a classroom with about 4 or 5 other 2 and 3-year-olds with a special education teacher and 2 paraeducators as well. So it's almost one-on-one. There's swim lessons. They take them on field trips to work on their community integration and socialization. And they're very kind-hearted too. And we feel so, so lucky to have that opportunity where we live. And it's my understanding that other people don't. And for special education children, there's just such an intense need. You know, even I feel like we have a lot of resources. And I'm since a stay-at-home mother, and still I don't know what I would do without her special education preschool. We're really lucky.
Thank you guys all for sharing your experiences. I think that we have to give kudos to Family Childcare. How many Family Childcare providers do we have in the room? To the centers that do what they can to support the families and all of their children in getting in, as well as the spaces that support children with exceptional needs. Early childhood is not a monolith. It is so nuanced and it's so intentional, and it's very intricate. You guys shared a little bit of all of my questions that I have for you. However, I'm going to ask that maybe you gave us the pretty version of your experience, when we all know that behind closed doors it might have been some tears, some frustration, some no. She told me I was number 5 on the wait list. So if you had to describe your experience in finding childcare in one word, could you just give me that one word? I know, I made it tough. I'm sorry.
For me, it was fear then relief.
Fear and then relief. I'll take 2 words. I'll take 3.
hardest thing ever.
Yeah.
I think daunting.
Yeah.
It's almost discouraging a little bit.
Yeah. And the reason why I think that we have to, when I talk about the impact of the words, because they didn't say that initially, right? Everybody's happy now they got childcare, right? Everybody's good. They're not waiting to get a call back. But this is the reality for many of our families, right? So imagine you have to go to work. You're not sure if your children are going to be okay because you needed to just find some place for them today. I know that we have married families, but imagine if you were a single parent trying to raise your child and trying to figure this out and navigate this space. So I think that it's important that when we talk about what that experience is, we talk about the good, the bad, and the what? So we also talked about cost.
I was gonna say, to kind of add to that, I want another child, and my current provider, she's in her 80s. I pray every single day that she is completely healthy because I need her for my next child, because I don't know what I would do if I didn't have her.
Yeah, because when you find a good thing, you want to keep it. But the reality is, it's sometimes out of our control, and then to your point of wanting to have more children. So you had mentioned a little bit about costs, and I'm a previous Bright Horizon, so I know how those costs work. When cost has come up, how have you guys navigated that space? Money is already a bit of a taboo topic, whether it's asking for an increase or it's thinking about which pay is going to land so that way I can pay for childcare. And is it childcare or is it food? Is it childcare or is it housing? Anyone care to share about that experience?
So like when me and my husband were looking for childcare for all of our kids at once, we had to like reevaluate, like, okay, whose income is going to substantiate our whole household at this time? Because there was a point where we couldn't afford for all 4 of them at the one time. We had gotten to I think we got to close to December. It was around Christmas time. So we were trying to buy presents for kids, make their clothes during that time, right? Because they have the little break for winter break. So we had to also pay for somebody to watch our kids. And then when January came around, we were tapped out. So it was hey, I'm sorry you didn't pay the bill, because we used the money that we got back from Purchase of Care to take care of all those other different things. And so we had to be out of, I think, care for all 4 kids, because the oldest one was 5, the youngest one was 1, for I think it was 2 weeks. So one person had to just not work at all and stay at home with our kids.
Yeah, our experience when we were trying to fill that gap before my daughter got into preschool was there's a big difference between if you can't get into a childcare center, then we were using babysitters at the home. And we were lucky to have Bright Horizon resources through both of our employers. We were both working at home at the time. But they're unreliable. Within a couple weeks, the one babysitter we're using had an emergency and had to go out of town for a week. And I would always say, gosh, we're so lucky we work from home. What do people do who can't say, okay, put the baby in front of Cocomelon for 20 minutes while I'm on this work call? Not everyone can do that. And I know that we're very fortunate that we could be able to fill that gap.
I think for our household, we ended up having to explore other avenues to get more money. And so my husband was driving DoorDash and Amazon Flex, and I was working a second at-home job, and I was completely exhausted at being able to afford what we could afford, despite the fact, again, we were a very strong, full-time earning 2-income household. And we had to make more money just to pay for daycare.
So it's thank God for DoorDash. Thank God for some of those easy, quick fix opportunities, and that's if you have a second mode of transportation. So when I talk about nuance, these are the things that I'm referring to. And so also in talking about cost, one of the things we know is that if parents are not paying for childcare, we can't pay our educators, right? So we don't want to turn anyone away. We don't want to say but we need that revenue because our educators have to be paid as well. So imagine the plight and the experience of the families going to their provider, who is a human and has a family of their own, right? I remember being an educator, not being able to afford to take my own children to the very childcare that I worked at. Applying for services because that's how much money that I made that I can get social services. So it's a reality, and we have to have this conversation. No one's gonna say we're gonna solve it all, we're gonna fix it today, but we can figure out what we're committed to today. The next question. What is an opportunity that Delaware can take to support Delaware families? What is an opportunity that Delaware can take to support Delaware families?
Just one opportunity?
I mean, it's 3 of y'all, you can divide it up.
I mean, it's been said in this room, and we'll say it again, increase eligibility for families and pay educators. Invest in paying educators and invest in training them to not just be someone who is a person in the room with your child. Providing quality education for the educators to educate the whole child, the diverse child, the exceptional child. Because like you said, childcare is not a monolith. And we have 3 very different children between the 3 of us sitting here. And they all deserve quality education from 0 to 3. And if you haven't seen the film, Starting at Zero.
Yes.
It is an amazing film that not just educators should watch, but more families should watch and have access to that film. I think they should be giving it as a link to parents. Say, watch this film at home, because it really did change my perspective as a mom about what education could look like at an equitable level.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing.
I think she said it all, like increased funding, and then even like not only should we, get the word out for the teachers, right, to increase staffing, but like we should probably introduce it at a younger age to those, to like high school students, so that they can actually come in and train to learn how to be in a facility, so that when they get older, they have something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
I think there's an opportunity to provide incentives because there's definitely a demand for childcare where I live. People want to take those spots, but there's obviously barriers to starting a business, whether it's childcare or whether it's an indoor playground for, because as the mother of a special needs child, like she has so many extracurricular needs, and I'm always so worried about her safety. I need places that I can take her that are safe, and I'm willing to pay, but they're just not there because, there's challenges to starting those types of businesses.
Thank you, guys. When you breathed in, I thought you were going to say something.
No.
So thank you for sharing the opportunities that Delaware can take to support families. I'd like to echo too, highlighting the fact that when I talk about the village, we are all in this together. It is the parents, it is the educators, it's the children. It's like a 3-legged stool. Without one of those legs, you really can't sit in it. And so really having those conversations that we are figuring this out together. Anything else that you want our policymakers to hear loud and clear before we go to question and answer? No pressure.
I would reiterate that, if we want to enhance our workforce, the parents do need childcare. I'm a stay-at-home mom now. I was a banker working in finance for 20 years. I have real human capital I can put to work, but I just don't, even with the preschool, it's like, oh, she gets home at 3:30, how can I be in meetings? And you can't really be a part-time banker, so it's hard for me to put my human capital to work right now until I feel like she's in a better place. And we're also trying to have a second child, and it's like, okay, forget it, maybe we'll get an au pair if I want to go back to work, and it's a real challenge. And I might be retired now, no longer a banker in Wilmington. So
families are definitely juggling a lot of basketballs and a lot of glass balls and try not to let any of them drop. Anyone else?
I think what I would say to whatever, as Tony said, or I'm sorry, Dr. Allen said, we don't know what happens over there. And so because we don't know, it's hard for us to imagine that legislators can put themselves in our shoes. So what I would say is, if you don't have children, if you've never thought about children, if your children are older, if you don't have grandchildren, put yourselves in our shoes, especially today. and realize that it is not the same as it was before. Throw that idea away. The idea of having someone stay at home, that's not sustainable. And if you want to be a sustainable legislative group and a legislative body, you have to think about the future and expect the unexpected. So please put yourselves in our feet and in our shoes and in our homes and in our hearts, because we care about this, not just for our children, for our children's children, and for us to be able to continue the legacy that we want for ourselves. And if I could just add one thing before we go to Q&A, I see a lot of beautiful people in this room, but I do think that we need to diversify educators, and including early educators that are male. I see a lot of beautiful women in this room, and I thank all of you, but there does need to be diversity in the types of teachers that we have that are non-binary, that allow our children to see a reflection of themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And she ended it so well. But like everybody says that the kids are our future, but they're here right now. So they're our now. Yes. You know what I mean? Their kids are our future. So in order to set those kids up, we need you to support now for our now.
Yes. Okay, families dropping gems. Make sure you guys put that. We have enough time to take 2 questions. Everyone can't raise their hand at the same time. I can only take 2. Any questions for our amazing panelists? We did have the
Hello, my name is Maidalis Gomez. I work in Read Aloud, Delaware, and I have 2 children with autism in the same school of you.
We're on swim class together.
Yeah. I have a question for you, because it's a question that I asking me all the time. How do you see you in the future, in 5 years old, when your child are at school, but you was waiting all the time for start or restart your path in your work, in your future? How do you see your future in 5, 10 years old?
For me, it might be a little different. I'm an older mother. I know some people, I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I'm also I'm kind of retired. I'm 48. Can't that just be it? I have my career. So it might just be, needing to be there to support her, because the level of attention she needs is pretty intense. So I understand that we're fortunate, and I say all the time I don't know what other families do, because my husband does work full-time. I worked for over 20 years, so we have savings, and I think that really my main focus probably will be caring for my daughter. It does seem like that's the path that we'll be on in 5 years.
Great question, thank you. Anyone else? All right.
I have more of a statement to say, and it's for to this young lady all the way on the left. I also am from Sussex County, and I want you to know I do have a 5-year-old, and I am on social media platforms. And every day it is heartbreaking to see moms say, does anyone know of openings in daycares? And I sit back and my heart breaks, because we know there's a 2-year wait list. We know we are low in the centers. We know our teachers are underpaid. We get it. And as an ECE teacher, I just want you to know, we do hurt for you guys, and we are doing our best. I am also on my own time advocating, whether it's for a special needs child in a classroom. I am out there at a board meeting getting the rights for these little ones also. So as a teacher, I just want you to know that we do care, and we do see.
Oh, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so I know that, this is my sister if you can't tell, because we look so much alike. I know that you guys are talking about being working women and having working households, but then also that you were talking about how it takes a village. So just wanting to know 2 things, if there was any support that came from your employers when it came to connecting you to different services, or then other things in the community that also helped you to connect you to these services as well.
So I would say for my personal employer, no, I work from home. So no, I did not receive any assistance or direction. As I mentioned before, my husband had access with his previous job, but then he got another job, and then that was just kind of just tossed out the window. As far as the community, Like I said before, I have a very strong religious family and a religious community, so that's where I did identify. But I didn't feel as though there was enough resources for me when it came to like looking. Like I think I Googled like childcare centers in Wilmington, and so not being able to be kind of doing my own research by myself kind of was a bit of a challenge. And then of course I looked at you because you're an educator, so that's where I kind of got all that. But that was my experience.
So with a few of my kids, I was working for the state of Delaware. I actually ended up having to quit because I didn't have enough time. When I went into the private sector, and worked for a small business, their support was allowing me to bring my child to work with me. So we had a playpen in my office, and I forewent raises in order to be able to stay at the income level I needed to keep the other kids in daycare.
My former employer and my husband's employer both do have Bright Horizons. It's backup care, but it doesn't really provide the care. It's more of a reimbursement, but we're still very appreciative of to have it, and we still use it during school vacations to provide more support.
Thank you guys. I really, really appreciate. This is what I mean when I talk about the impact of your words, and I want you guys to clap and stand for them. Like they impacted you. I'm appreciative of your time. Thank you.
Perfect transition to our childcare program. So Anisha, Rondalyn, Melanie, and Denise. Denise, are you here? Oh, I think she's here somewhere. All right, great. So I'm not Don Parsons. He's stuck in traffic and sorry to miss us. He'll join us this afternoon. I'm Madeline Byard from Rodell, and we are honored to have a panel of programs here, a variety of types, very nuanced, as Danae mentioned. And I'm just going to ask each of them to introduce themselves, a little bit about their center, and who they serve.
My name is Denise Halcomb. I'm the Center Administrator at Wonder Years Learning Center in Harrington, so I'm from the bottom of the state. We currently have 77 children enrolled in our program. We have early Head Start as well as state-funded children, and 64% of the children that we have enrolled in the center are purchase of care families.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anisha Law. I am the Community Executive Director at the Walnut Street YMCA in Wilmington, Delaware. We currently have about 200 students that enter the building each day, 30 of which are early childhood students. The other students are our team students, and we also serve before and after care, 486 students. That is at our Walnut Y. At our Central YMCA, we also have 90 students who are in our early childhood program as well. In both facilities, we have a 98% POC rate. Families are on POC.
Wow. My name is Melanie Thomas Price. I own and operate a Leap of Faith Child Development Center. We are located in Wilmington. We've been in business for over 20 years now. Where does time go? Over 20 years we've been in business. We have a capacity of 166, but because we serve early Head Start as well as state-funded pre-K, we probably hover right around 100. Because of course we have lower capacities and we need additional teachers. So,
All right. Hello, good morning. We're here to advocate. We can do this. My name is Rondalyn Cannon Tingle. I'm a family child care provider in Sussex County. Rhonda's Little Angels ACE program, over 25 years of experience. I'm also DEAEC's Family Child Care Ambassador for the last 2 years. So trying to get our girls in there, get them advocating, offer that high quality, meet our kids where they are, and get this funded because we deserve it and we need it.
Amen. You keep it going. So we could spend the whole day talking about the challenges you all face, and you talked about wanting to serve more families, but needing the staff to do that. So maybe each of you can talk about one or two of the biggest challenges, and then build on each other's from there. You want to start?
I know a challenge for family child care and
We did some networking from Sussex County all the way up to Wilmington. Providers are struggling. We don't have incentives to offer. For us to compete with the workforce and offer competitive wages, it's almost impossible, because when you're a small family, it hits hard. So I'm taking out of my pocket to try to make it. Family Child Care Educator of the Year, you know what we go through. So we smile, we grin, and we do what we can, but it's hard, Madeline. And we're sticking in here, and without the help from centers, I don't know whether Tony Dickerson is here. Is she here?
I don't think she could be here.
Okay, we network with the centers as Family Child Care, so thank you guys, because we need you. We're all under the same umbrella.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think one of our bigger issues is now we're required to get more education, right? And see, I came from the school district. I came from the public school, so I was a school teacher. I taught 4th and 5th grade. So while you're in the public school, the more education you get, the more money you get, right? So now we're requiring additional education. Everyone needs the CDA. Well, guess what? Just the same as it was when I was working for the school district, you deserve the absolute same thing. Yes, if you are required to get more education, you should be paid more. So we've had to make the sacrifice. Just about all of my center, like I said, we have a capacity of 166. We probably have 2 teachers right now that are working on their CDA. Everyone else has completed one. So guess what I did? I gave them a raise. They deserve a raise, and it's still not much. You deserve a decent salary. Decent.
Thank you. That was amazing. And I would agree. One of the challenges, I think a few challenges that we have, but one being definitely the quality investment in our teachers. I remember Corey just mentioned about offering quality programming and making sure our teachers are trained. And so being able to have the capacity to do that. But that requires days out of school. It requires intense training. I mean, I'm closing my child care center to sit down with my teachers to share with them what the things they need to be successful. And it takes time. Another one is just investment as well. What that becomes an investment with our teachers. The YMCA a few years ago raised our minimum wage to $15 an hour, which was great, but it still didn't meet the need for our families. One of the benefits that we have as a YMCA is that we have a workforce program for high school students. So we're able to tap into some of those students who are at the VOTEC schools, who are in early childhood areas, and kind of develop and create this pipeline for them. So we are able to retain them and develop them in our early child care programs. But it's definitely been a challenge offering professional development for our staff, getting them the quality services that they need, as well as paying them more.
And another difference from K-12, no substitutes to rely on.
We're all pretty much going to sit up here and say the same thing. It's all about money, it's all about training, and it's all about paying based on what they know and what they deserve. As an example, because I actually did some looking yesterday before I came up, in my local school district, a first-year teacher with no experience starts out at a salary comparable to what my salary is, and I've been in the field for 25 years.
For a 9-month job with benefits.
With benefits, exactly. We all want our staff to be better educated, and we know that that's important to the children receiving quality care, but then where we struggle is when they maintain that better education, why wouldn't they go to the school where they can work 9 months out of the year and get benefits and make more money than what we have to offer them?
Absolutely. So we heard from some parents, and you all deal with parents all the time, and I've heard you all say we would love to serve more parents if we had more funding and could hire more staff. Maybe talk about some of the challenges you experience serving families. We talked a little bit earlier about serving families whose children maybe have special needs or aren't diagnosed yet. So talk about some of the family challenges that you've faced.
The families are struggling with the POC, so hopefully making that raise will be able to facilitate and provide for more families. One of the other things that we see a lot is families that are in need of care that don't qualify for POC because of some of the other things. It may not be an income thing, but it may be because they're only working part-time or they're not working. It doesn't mean that their child doesn't deserve a quality education, but they're not receiving the funding or the assistance that they need to be able to pay for that education. That's one of the big things that we're struggling with now, and especially with our early Head Start and state-funded families.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think one of the biggest challenges as providers is that we really have to make some really tough decisions. I'll give an example. I just had a parent who just had a baby. And because she just had a baby, she stopped working. So she stopped working, which also meant she didn't receive the POC for the time. And so her youngest child was out of childcare for 3 months. And he's transitioning to kindergarten. And so those conversations with us, it's just like, can you please hold my child's spot? Can you please hold my child's spot? And I'm like, I'm human. The human side and the business side. Do I fill this spot? Do I hold this spot for this family, this mom who's definitely in need in childcare and will need it when she returns to work? Or do I fill this spot? And so we have those conversations every day, and we have to make some really tough decisions as providers for families.
So with the makeup of my center, I had committed to hiring the majority of my staff from the community. So we are right on the west side of Wilmington on 4th Street. We're probably in one of the tougher areas. So many of my staff may be a product of the environment. When I say that to say this. As I said earlier, we have over 90% purchase of care. So my staff alone, many of them come in with children before they arrive, right? So because I'm paying them a little bit more, I'm paying them $18 an hour, and I'm over 90% purchase of care. We make the sacrifice. We're making the sacrifice. Tomorrow, 100% of my staff are going to the Focus on Families conference. I made the commitment. It's a sacrifice. But because I've hired teachers from the community, they come with their children, and I'm paying them a little more. Because I'm paying a little more, they are having to deal with that benefits cliff. They make a little bit more money. $18 an hour isn't much money. What can you buy? Once you pay your bills, now in the grand scheme of things, when you look at what other people are paying, it seems like a lot, but it's really not much. They're not able to pay for much. But once they go for their benefits, they're no longer getting those benefits. So I'm making a sacrifice again because I want them to continue to work. So they can't afford to pay me. So I'm either allowing their children to come for free, or I'm taking a hit once again. So I'm seeing those types of scenarios happen in our area.
Yes, I agree, Melanie. And in family child care, we take a big hit. Like I said before, we're small. Our families are our family. So when the families take a hit, we take a hit as the owner. We've sat up and cried with families because we've had families make $5 too much, and it kicks them off POC. So I've had children from the age of newborn till 7 or 8 years old. When October the 1st hit and POC stopped, I lost 4 children that I had for over 5 and 6 years. We cried. The children are now sitting home with grandparents, calling me, FaceTiming me every day because they want to be in circle time. They want to be in school. They want to be in the outdoor classroom. My mom's not doing this, Miss Rhonda. Can I come with you? It hurts. We cry. My husband gets tired of hearing me say, babe, I just need to open a great big Rhonda house and just take all the babies and keep them. That's what I want to do because it's not fair to the parents and it's not fair to the families. It's not fair to us as educators to have to make that choice. Well, I can't watch them for free. They're going to take up a space. If Miss Betty Gale Trim's specialist comes out, I'm in trouble because I'm off. So it puts us in a compromising position and it's not fair. And I have a provider that's here today with a young man with special needs. And they offer her services. It took, almost a year to get services. Once she got the services, the young man is there from 8 to 10 hours a day. She gets help 45 minutes, 1 time a week. And this is what we're.
Tell us what hours you're open, Rhonda.
Non-traditional hours are open 6 a.m. A lot of my families are either nurses, and we have the Amazon, so they have to be at work by 6:30. So I'm open 6 a.m. My last child leaves 7:30 p.m. Monday through Friday.
And do you
Yes.
get paid overtime for
No,
those
ma'am.
extra hours?
No overtime. No. Now my parents spoil me. They know I love seafood, so they'll bring me stuff every now and then, donuts and stuff. They know I love my Starbucks. It keeps me going. But this is a sacrifice we make for our parents, and our parents look, for us to be there.
Absolutely.
So we gotta be there for our parents.
All right, let's do a final, you keep it and go this way. Final thought about what would you want legislators to know? What do you want policymakers to hear? What do you want to tell them?
I want to tell them, as a family child care educator, I'm not a babysitter. I've never sat on a I've never sat on a baby a day in my life, and I don't plan on it. So please do not call us babysitters. There are family child care providers that offer high quality. We meet our children where they are. When my children leave me, they're ready for kindergarten. So don't call me a babysitter.
First, I'd like to thank them because I sat there in the seat and I said to myself, they hear us. They hear us. I appreciate that. We've been, and I've watched you for years, Madeline.
And I watch you.
For years. And we've planted many seeds together. But it's wonderful to see some of that garden start to sprout up. And we're starting to see some of the things, some of the seed that we put in the ground, especially you years ago. You're starting to see some of those things. Of course, we're still in the fight, but we're in the fight one with another now because we are all working together congruently, and that's exactly what our children need. They need us to work together. We're setting the foundation, and then they're going to elementary and they're building on that foundation. They're going off to middle school and they're building some more. So once we get a nice, strong foundation, and that is what you're doing, you are fortifying a nice, strong foundation. I left the school district because I found that many of our meetings as a teacher was all about little, I'm going to say it, black boys at the time. Now we're talking about low-income children. But back then, years ago, over 20-some years ago, we were talking about black boys that were not coming to school where they needed to be, right? You are making it happen. They are coming to school where they need to be. They're not coming in behind. Because when they come in behind, guess what you're doing? You're trying to catch up and fortify that foundation, but we are sending them to school ready. And it makes a difference. Let's work together to make sure it's understood.
Today, I think for me, my goal is to share these stories. The stories of our families that go unheard, the stories that we're sharing here today that our legislators do not know anything about. And I think it's important that they know what's happening with our families, they know what's happening with our staff, the investment with our staff, and how it is important that we need to continue to pour into them. And so today I will be sharing the stories, the many stories of our families, and getting the word out of just how important access to early child care is.
I can't top any of that. But I think the big thing is, and one of the parents said it, walk in our shoes and understand where we're coming from. I have 4 children of my own. I have 2 grandchildren. But those 77 kids, those are my kids. Their families are my families. This isn't a job to us. This is our passion. And we're not going to give up.
Please join me in thanking the amazing
thoughts about that picture too. That haircut was misguided.
Dr. Patsy and Colleen, come on.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kirsten Olson, and I'm so proud to serve as CEO of Children and Families First, and CFF is in the house. Love it. And we're going to talk in this session about childcare from a couple of different angles, both from an employer perspective and also from a community benefit. Childcare as a social good, it's good for all of us, it's good for the community. And just a little background, at CFF, we come to this work in a number of different ways. We are an early childhood provider, Head Start, early Head Start, home visiting. We do a lot of workforce supports, access care. But we also provide services to families that rely on all of you in this room for them to be able to go to work and do the things that they need to do. And we're also an employer. We have 400 staff who also rely on all of you to be able to come to work. So this is something I'm passionate about and really happy to talk about. And we are short one panelist. You can see Lauren Weaver from the Bethany Fenwick Chamber was unable to join us because she has a sick kid. So we know how that goes. It's very on brand for today. But we do have these wonderful panelists, and I'm going to start you guys off by asking you to introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about why this is important to each of you.
Thank you. I'm Helen Keith. I'm the president at Goldie Beacom College in Wilmington. And I was invited to be here today by Madeline because I opened my mouth at a Rotary meeting and made the comment that I have worked at 8 different colleges in 7 different states. And I've been the president of 3 colleges for the past 15 years. So, you know, I've been around the issue of early childhood. I actually was the early childhood education advisor at Ohio State for a number of years. So it's been an interesting thing because when I got to Delaware, I found what I thought was kind of backwards thinking in terms of early childhood. That they're just, you know, Delaware, and when I lived in the upstate of South Carolina, there are 1,532,449 people that live in the upstate of South Carolina. There are 1,031,890 people in the state of Delaware. And Delaware could do so much better. There's just so much out there to do. And it's exciting to have a Laura Sturgeon and a Kyle Evans-Gay, you know, that are talking about this and really understanding, because my child is 35 and Delaware is far behind what I experienced in Marion, Ohio when my child was an infant. It's just, so that's become a very passionate thing. It hits me where I live with employees. It hits me where I live with student parents. It's all of that. So it's just become very important.
Great, thank you, Colleen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Priscilla Passi. I'm a pediatrician at Christiana Care, previously at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And I think I was invited here similarly. I opened my mouth at a meeting talking about early childhood and just the spectrum of pediatric life. I also come to you guys as the chair of our Delaware Mother and Infant Healthy Consortium, and I say that intentionally because we know when it talks about early childhood, it actually starts in pregnancy, right? Making sure that mother and birthing persons are healthy, right? That's going to be a greater predictor for healthy children. So that first 1,000 days of life actually starts in pregnancy to age 2. So we need to also be talking about our parents as well in this conversation, making sure that's good. Specifically for me, of course, as a pediatrician, so I see age 0 up to the age of 21 and 364 days. So I do see young adults. And really for me in early childhood, I am a part of the American Academy of Pediatrics, so it represents over 67,000 pediatricians. I serve on our Council of Early Childhood, and then here in the state of Delaware in our chapter, I serve on our Early Literacy committee. And so for us as pediatricians, we actually look at early childhood from 0 to 8 years old. And why we look at 8 years old, what grade correlates with 8 is 3rd grade. I see from our first spouse. And what are we doing in 3rd grade the first time? SSAs, right? So when we look at SSAs in reading and math, that is a predictor and indicator, right? It's not an absolute, but it's a predictor and indicator. And we are seeing, particularly in the state of Delaware, that our children have wide achievement gaps, right? Particularly racial gaps, particularly geography, right? When we think about equity, think geography. So for me as a pediatrician, thinking about early childhood, early education, right? How do we work upstream, right? We need to set our children up for success at day one, right? So that way when they're at 3rd grade, we're not then figuring out how we're going to make sure they're ready in 8th grade and high school, and then looking at high school and wondering why our high school graduation rate is so low. Well, let's go back and look at 3rd grade. Let's look at what we invested when they were 1 and 2 years old. So that's why this work is important for me as a pediatrician.
Thank you. So we're gonna talk a little bit about this from the employer angle, and we know that in order for folks to get to work, they need quality, competent care for their kids. And we really teed this up for Lauren, and she couldn't be here and was very sad, but sent a very long and passionate email about this issue and what she wanted to share. And I just want to highlight a couple of things. One, she talked about recently being part of a federal credit roundtable about workforce and labor constraints. And that's a pretty broad topic. But something that came up again and again and again was childcare, that employers across industries are seeing access to childcare as a huge barrier for their employees to be able to get to work. And it's having impacts in all kinds of places and industries, and Lauren is in Bethany Fenwick. Our resort areas really rely on tourism. And so she talked about a hotel who had to change all of their housekeeping shifts from Monday to Friday from 9 to 5 because they couldn't get coverage in those out of usual business hours for their staff. And so think about that kind of resort turnover usually happens on a Saturday, and they just aren't able to do it. They can really only have their folks in the buildings during regular sort of operating hours. She talked about even, hotels with cleaning staff having their kids in the lobby while they're working their shifts, all of those things. And then really looking at people and a lot of what we talked about from the parent perspective, having to think about what their work schedule looks like. Can they come to work? Can they work full time? Are they having to cut back their hours? Are they having to work remote? And that all has huge impacts for those of us who are employers trying to get jobs done. And I wonder if you two have thoughts on that you'd like to add from your perspective.
Oh yeah. There are 5 generations in the workforce now, and I'm sobered to say that I'm at the upper end. I'm the tail end of the baby boomers, which just amazes me. But those 5 generations in the workforce all come with something. There's grandparents raising children, there are young employees that are just starting to have kids, and in Delaware, 13%, according to the Delaware Investment Agenda, 13% of Delaware families had someone quit the workforce because they couldn't find childcare. I've had that. Parents haven't returned to the workforce since COVID because of cost and availability of childcare, which you all know. 6 out of 7 young children are unable to access early childhood education in this state. That's just amazing. And so as an employer, I look at flexible work hours. We don't have an on-site childcare, but we have a relationship with other childcares in the area. So if they have a space, we're often helping the parent to be able to get there. But being flexible, having those flexible hours, allowing people to be who they are and not have to come be, I'm the business advisor at Goldie Beacom. That's not who they are. That might be what they do, but who they are is the parent. So we're very flexible about that and have had to become more flexible. And it's been interesting because some of the older workers, they just live in a different world and they have a different mindset. And so I found that what we've had to do is kind of put different age groups together for various reasons so that they learn how to be together with and understand the various aspects of what's going on in somebody's life and really develop that empathy. And it's been working, but it's every day there is something that comes up that seems to have to do with childcare that we're adjusting for and trying to help moms and dads be employees in our setting as well.
Colleen, I think you answered that very well, and I think Laura did too. I think the one thing that I'll add, from a pediatrician standpoint, right, is, I'm working with families and regularly they are having the struggle or the decision of if a parent wants to work and they want to be in the workforce, should I work? Can I work? Or do I need to stay home and provide childcare, right? And so I have a good friend. She's a mental health therapist and had her first son. And she asked me about her son in development, and she started to see some delays and just low interaction. And I said it would be really great to get him in childcare so he could be around other children. That's a very important component of child development, right? A lot of times we think about motor skills, language skills, but actually social is very important with other children and peers, right? And so her response to me was, Priscilla, I don't have childcare money, right? And I paused, right? And she's in a 2-income household, right? Her husband works, she was working, and she said she did not have childcare money, so the decision to stay at home, right? But now her concern, right, is that her son, right, is not having these opportunities, right, to engage with other kids, to learn a different setting. And so what we're seeing on our end, right, is more children that are presenting later with developmental delays, right, that could have been caught much earlier. Because I love what the parents, and I'm starting to catch your name, right, not babysitters, right, they're childcare providers that have trained skills to be able to identify this. So when a parent comes and they're concerned about developmental delays, concerned about ADHD, the first thing a pediatrician does is they do a screen. The parent screen is one, but we always ask for 1 or 2 additional screens from another adult that is around that child, right? And if that doesn't exist, we're in a situation, right? So that's where we struggle with employment. Like, how are we ensuring, right, that we are providing appropriate quality salaries, right, for parents, but also employees that can provide childcare. There's some employers that are doing that. We need a lot more, if not all of them, right, to be able to provide affordable childcare. Because the question should never be, if I want to work, can I send my child to childcare? It should be, where do I send my child for childcare, right? Parents should never have to make the decision.
So recently, the Delaware Business Roundtable, which is made up of the state's largest employers, issued a report calling for long-term investments in Delaware with a focus on childcare. And I think you've touched on this a little bit, but what can we do to leverage the interests of employers to advance early childhood investments?
I think it gets to be a combination of what everyone has said. When I was in Spartanburg, South Carolina, I was an early member of a board of something called the Spartanburg Academic Movement. And it started out as a way, they were very concerned that the number of adults who had a college education was pretty low in that area. And we pretty quickly learned that that wasn't the issue. The issue is, how do you develop your young people so that they can have the opportunity to make that decision about whether or not they want to go. And then workforce was the big issue there, because they didn't have enough of a workforce. There was a lot of industry coming into the area. That's where the BMW North American headquarters is. So that car company plus all of their subsidiaries and all of their suppliers and everybody were all around there. So you needed a workforce. And we quickly got to the point that we tied early childhood to having a workforce, and did really what you have talked about. If your child from 0 to 1 is not hitting developmental milestones, they're not going to hit kindergarten readiness, they're not going to hit 3rd grade reading, 8th grade math, high school graduation, any of that. It's not going to happen. So we started getting employers interested in, what does early childhood look like? And we developed an early childhood toolkit. So we worked with the pediatricians in the area and the daycare centers, and put in everybody's hand, that then got into the parents' hands, an early childhood toolkit that took them from birth to age 5 and gave them, an understanding of, when should your child be sitting up? When should your child be taking those first steps? All of that sort of thing. And then that got into the hands of the employers, and all of a sudden the employers are like, they're right, which made us very happy. But, it took tying early childhood to workforce, because workforce is the issue that makes the state's money. not early childhood. So tying it to workforce really made them think. And we were successful doing that and successful getting a whole host of early childhood centers accredited and getting better funding for them. There's still a lot of work to do, but we had to tie it to something that ultimately was about the dollar. And when we did that, we made progress.
Yeah, absolutely, Colleen. I will take this as a duality, right? Which is one, when I've had conversations with employers, right? I'm sure every employer wants skilled professionals, right? You want a skilled professional working for you. I'm thinking about in the healthcare system, right? I'm sure many of us would want a healthcare provider that's had some years of experience working with patients, doing procedures, prescribing medication, right? And oftentimes those are persons who've now continued in their career, their adult path and have had children, right? And so again, if they're making a decision to continue to work or to stay at home, or staying at home is great, but again, there are adults who want to work, and if they want to work and they're making the decision to stay at home, we're actually removing skilled professionals from the workforce, right? That's really, really critical. And then what we have, right, is new trainees, new graduates that are in the workforce, right? And so now we don't have those that can train them, right? So we have brand new those on the front line. So that's one element that I've tried to discuss with employers. And then the second part, right, is when we talk about increasing salary, right? That's important because when parents need to pay child care providers, we need to pay them not only a livable wage, right, but a wage that matches their skill set, right? There should not be child care providers that's earning the same salary, right, as someone that does not have any training or skills. It doesn't make sense to me, right? So during the summertime in college, I worked at Sports Authority, right? I was selling basketballs and t-shirts. Why is someone that is caring for a child that is going to become a livable citizen in this country making the same amount as what I did 10, 15 years ago? It doesn't make sense, right? So when I have these questions about paying childcare providers, right, it's saying, so you're basically telling me that you do not want to invest in children and you do not want to invest in our future, because that is where our future begins. Someone said that, right, the future is now, but we have to invest in those that are providing that care and making sure that people are making what their skill set is worth.
Now let's just shift a little bit, and again, I think both of you have touched on this, about the broader impact of early childhood on the community. So thinking about those first 1,000 days, thinking about child development, thinking about social determinants of health. Can you talk a little bit about and reflect on some of what we've heard this morning about early childhood as a social good and making sure that kids have access?
Yeah, I think it's easily summed up in a lot of ways. If you don't take care of your children and you don't give, when you build a house, you build the foundation first, and then you build everything on top of it. If you don't build the foundation of a child's life, how is that child going to access what they need? They're not going to be able to advocate for themselves. They're not going to be able to learn in the way that we need them to learn. It's all about the firm foundation. It's in anything, and that's just how it comes down to. It's really a pretty simple thing, but with a complicated answer, I think.
Yeah, the impact is significant, and we see this downstream. And I think the challenge, and I think, Senator Sturgeon said this well, right? She's a high school educator, so she's seeing that impact in high school. Now we're thinking about 13, 14, 15, up to 18-year-olds, right? Which means, right, that there was opportunity that was either obtained or missed in those first 13 or 14 years of life. So when we think about social determinants of health, right, we say it's where a person eats, sleeps, work, and play. And for a child, we think about it where a child learns, their environment, where they develop relationships, and where they prepare for school, right? That's critical because we also know that children spend at least 8, sometimes up to 10 hours in a school building, right? They have to be prepared for that. And so, again, when we talk about a child 0 to 2, right? They're at home, they're learning with parents, other siblings, right? Hopefully they're engaging with other children. Please do not, I'm just going to say, do not underscore the importance of play. It is important, right? So play is important. It is actually a skill that you can see in adulthood, right? So first children learn parallel play. They just kind of sit side by side. Then there's associate play around like 2 to 3, so they're sharing an item but not really engaging. There's cooperative play by the time they're 4 or kindergarten. Because I can tell when adults, right, did not play with other kids, right? Or they failed kindergarten sandbox. I'm like, yep, this one did not go to childcare, right? Just a little pediatrician humor, right? So I don't want to underscore the importance of like play, because children, right, they mimic. Right? That's when they learn to speak, right? They learn how to share. They learn how to manage their behaviors, right? Their emotional responses. And so what you see, right, especially if a child has not had the opportunity to go to childcare, be in pre-K, when they're in kindergarten, first grade, children are aware when they're not at the same pace of their peer. Right? If they're recognizing they can't write their name or the letters the same way, they're not able to pronounce words, right? How did this manifest in a child? A 5-year-old can only manifest through their emotions, right? They get angry, they may have tantrums, right? So now the teacher, and I love educators, right? But this is now, so that's another panel, right? Education and crowded classrooms, call me back, Kirsten. We'll talk about that, right? But if a teacher, right, now has to turn their attention, right, to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 children, that's not where they should be, or typically expected at a kindergarten level, right? The child is acting out. I now see the child when they're 5 and 6, and the parent is like, the child has had their in-school suspension. The child is, the teacher said they have ADHD. They're a bad child, right? And that follows them. Now they're in first grade, second grade. The child is acting out. They want to avoid their work because they know that they're not at pace with their peers. So this is certainly a downstream effect, right? This is not just a one-off. We see this all the time. And now I have the 3rd grade child that I've seen from kindergarten, right, that now we're working on behavior modifications where we should have been perhaps identifying an IEP or a one-to-one, right, because the recognition of where they were was not there, right? So it's downstream effect. And again, I talked about SSAs in 3rd grade and so forth, right? So now children become labeled, right? And then parents, right, who may have future children, right? Well, my child was labeled as this, or my child was labeled as that. And they were getting the resources they needed. So now parents are now even more hesitant for their next children to come and seek services. So it's a continuous cycle, it's a downstream effect, right? So that's the social determinants of help and how we see that literally starting from the day the child was born. Right? And I just talked about 3rd grade. I didn't talk about middle school. I didn't get to high school. I didn't talk about opportunity for vocational training, college. It all starts here. That's what I would try to enforce, right, to our legislators. I know that's going to be your
that was my next question.
Your next question, right? And I'll switch it back to Colleen. But that's what I try to impart on legislators, right? We talk about walking in shoes, and yes, but let's think about where we want to be in 10, 20, 30 years. These children are going to be running our country. They're going to be in our workforce, right? So we need to make sure we're setting up for optimal success. That really starts in pregnancy and then at the time the child is delivered. So it's a significant downstream effect that we're seeing, and we're really pushing as pediatricians, right, to have that intervention and opportunities from day one.
I think for legislators to know, you're going to pay for it one way or another. I mean, look at now the legislation going through to have mental health counselors in every school. My husband's a child therapist, has been for nearly 40 years. Currently working as a school social worker at a charter school in Pennsylvania, just over the border. And he gets no end of solicitations to be a school social worker, a therapist, a mental health therapist in schools. And the whole reason is because we have a lot of young people that need a lot of support, and it all gets back to the foundation. So you're going to pay for it one way or another. Why not start the child out and help families out at the very beginning, and then the rest of it falls into place for the most part.
Any closing thoughts?
How much time do we have? I'm standing between the group and lunch and our legislative visits. I think closing thoughts, I'm speaking to a well-versed, educated group of champions, right? So we all know where the opportunities are, we know where the challenges are, right? And it's really important for us, right, to engage with community organizations or legislators that have the opportunity, right? So whether it's past legislation, make adjustments in their organization that are going to overall promote and support children. This, I know we're in the segment of early childhood and early childhood education. When we talk about the full scope of early childhood, we need to make sure, right, I said we need to talk about families and parents. We need to be addressing housing, right? Affordable housing is a component, gainful employment is a component, transportation, right? Food security. These are all aspects that parents have to consider when they have a child or children, right, that impacts the overall development of that child and their opportunity for success. So this cannot be an isolated conversation, right? So we need to be making sure that we're looking at bills that are ensuring that we have more affordable housing, safe housing, right? That we have community prevention programs or community violence prevention programs, right, that children are gonna come into, after school programs, right? All of these aspects have to come together, right, to ensure the best chance for that child to have success. I always say that education is the great equalizer, right? Many children are starting in different places, and I truly believe that it is education. When you empower a child to learn and you give them knowledge and the tools, they have the opportunity, right, to then meet up with those that have had other opportunities before them. Education is the great equalizer, right? So there is no reason why a child in one area of a state should have better or quality education as compared to another child in a different part of the state. No reason why. Right? And especially that's Colleen, in a state this size. I recognize that we're in Dover, right? Thinking about Kent County, Sussex County, when we compare it to the city of Wilmington and Newcastle, right? We know that childcare salaries are lower. We know that educational opportunities are less, right? We need to make sure there's equity in that across the state. There is no reason, again, why a child, regardless of where they are born and their zip code, does not have the same opportunities for their children. So that is my line. Education is the great equalizer. If we can make education and early childhood opportunities equitable, then we can ensure that all of our children will be set up for success.
Thank you both. Can we get a round of applause for this awesome panel?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Dr. Impasi. Thank you, Colleen. So we have a little bit of a change in schedule, which is we're in early education. We know how to pivot. We didn't need a pandemic to teach us how to do that. So we are actually going to break, well, after I'm done talking, we're gonna break for lunch. It is set up over here to the left. And then we are going to come back kind of to seats. You can mix, you can mingle. The Lieutenant Governor is gonna do a pop-in, and she is thankfully good at and okay with being very casual today. She's just gonna speak when she gets here. Traffic is a nightmare throughout the state. And then we're gonna go over just the talking points of the day. For those of you, we have some folks who have left for legislator meetings. We have some that are going to be leaving in a little bit. And then just the remaining events once we leave here will be over at Legislative Hall. I do want to give a little bit of a warning. Today is assigning, we always, literally every year, early childhood advocacy and gun advocacy ends on the same day. So there are a lot of folks over gun violence prevention advocacy, sorry. You know, so. Thanks, Sarah. I mean, yes. I think everybody who knew me knows me. That's what I meant. At 12:45, we're gonna go to the steps of Legislative Hall on the outside, get a quick photo, and then inside, Lisa and groups of anyone. We have a table upstairs on the second floor, and if anyone is walking over to Legislative Hall after this and wants to lend a hand on what's moving over, that'll be great. And then at 2:30, because Lisa's minus a hand, she literally needs a hand. And then at 2:30 in the governor's office, there will be a proclamation signing, and then we will complete the day from there as both houses go into session. So everybody, I am not going to say like table 1, table 2, line up. Please just take your time, use your manners. If you sneeze, don't do it on the food. And we can break for lunch now. And when you hear like a microphone go back on, it will likely be the Lieutenant Governor. So you can just pause where you are.
Are you enjoying this?